the country, and we're very glad to have you here so we can unpack all of this together. We've got a bunch of stuff coming up. Let me give you a quick preview, and then we'll zoom in for further details. We got a bunch of tabs here and a bunch of breaking news, like a fire hose every 5 minutes or something new happening. But what we got, the latest is, we got some Marines being mobilized to get out there and to quell some of these protests. Lots of talk about the Insurrection Act of 1807 coming back up. Because remember, back during the Rodney King era, they did send the Marines out there to quell that problem, and this thing might be much worse than that. So we're going to go through this. I got a bunch of clips here. You can see some of the carnage, and then we'll just parse through what CNN said about it, because they're furious that Trump is saying that this is an insurrection. They said only we can call things that you do an insurrection, and that wasn't even an insurrection. For American citizens who were upset about a rigged election and invited into the Capitol building by our corrupt government. But the point is, we're going to go through this today. We got a bunch of stuff on the Insurrection Act. We'll talk about it. We got Tom Cotton, the senator, also came out and was opining on this, saying this might be the next step if things continue to brew. And we just got a bunch of stuff on that topic. Then we'll turn our attention to this Newsom battle, because this is capturing a lot of attention. Gavin Newsom came out in this little weird interview where he's like, arrest me, please, arrest me. No one's paying attention to me. No one likes me. My whole state is ruined. I could use any help with any political attention that you can give me. So just put the handcuffs on me already, please. Okay. We can all see what you're doing here. But Trump commented on it. He's like, yeah, arrest him. What do I care? Sure, throw him away. Gavin's fundraising on it. Trump had a bunch of comments about it. They're still destroying LAPD's houses, building, office building. We got a ton of clips here from Karen Bass and others. And even now, Gavin Newsom suing President Trump. Trump doesn't really give a crap. So we have his reaction to that all coming up. Then I want to talk about this situation where we have to recognize, in my opinion, that this is way beyond just a little bit of a riot, a little bit of a protest. These are just individuals here just
I'm doing okay.
Their First Amendment freedom and concerns about dictatorial abuse.
Well, I'm following the wife. That's her in front of me.
It's an insurrection. It's an invasion, and it is a battle that has been a long time brewing. We're starting to see it manifest because we've got this woman, Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, so-called, and she's coming out saying that they're going to mobilize if they don't get their way on remittances, which is money from the United States back to Mexico. So she's looking at her, she's doing all,
no, I got paid on that assignment.
So she's getting ready for that. And the Daily Mail is saying that she is calling the people who are torching our country, like this little, are calling them heroes. What? In response to the violent riots. Now, this is just the beginning of, I think, what has been brewing for quite a long time. We got some photos of these maniacs who are planting their flags in our territories. And if you're familiar with some of these conversations, you may understand this term called the Reconquista, which is Mexico's sort of cultural movement to reconquer what they claim to be is their stolen lands. And this is happening right now. It's not just, well, we're just upset, just going to protest ice cream, but no, this is it. And they're even talking about it. And remember, back in 1915, they planned another insurrection previously. They wanted to seize Arizona, New Mexico, and California. So this is just point 2.0. And this little amigo here is explaining this is their plan. He's out there today. Willie Nelson is explaining it. He says, yeah, this is our land. You guys stole it from us. So we're just retaking it back. So just eat it, America. We got a bunch of Democrats who are like, well, don't be bigoted. Don't be bigoted to them if they're coming here to steal your land away from you and are openly.
Oh, we're just heading home.
Don't be a racist, Rob. All right, so we're not at all. We're just commenting on foreign invaders.
Just worried about her.
Openly saying that they're going to be stealing your land, just to be clear. So we got that. We also had this woman in Minnesota who is apparently an illegal alien, who is a state representative, who is an illegal alien state representative. So they're governing us too. All right, in Minnesota. Maybe they like that there. But she just admitted it. And people are CC Ice and Tom Homan. Hello, she just admitted. So we'll go through that, and we'll look into who's funding a lot of these things. We've got this Mexican flag becoming a potent LA protest symbol. No, it's a symbol of conquest. Shout out to our friend. And then we'll see if we got time. I think we'll get to it. We got this Kilmar update because they're doubling down DOJ rather, on fighting to keep this dude in custody, right? This is the next battle. Can Kilmar get out of custody? We do not want that to happen. And currently, I think he's still got, I don't know if he's got ACLU lawyers on his criminal case or not, but the DOJ dropped this one in as well to have a little bit of some legal updates that we'll get to. And it's going to be just a heck of a show. And so, if there's anything else that pops up throughout the screen, thanks for alerting me to it, because we know that the news is popping right now. And I'm keeping my eye on some of the cables as well.
I don't know if I did or not.
Into the news and the business of the day.
They had me doing some recording out at the Libby glass factory.
Costs going on, markets shifting, everything's looking.
I got paid for it though.
Right now. Mortgages, groceries, gas prices, and so for a homeowner, they've thought, should I call American Financing to refinance and pay off this credit card debt? And then you may second guess yourself because of that low mortgage rate you currently have. But look, that low rate may not actually be saving you any money if you're drowning in credit card interest at 25% or more. And that's the math nobody wants to face. But it's costing, or could be costing you a lot of money, thousands. Now the fact is, if you're only making minimum payments, that debt can follow you for years. That's why people are calling American Finance, because they're saving customers an average of $800 a month by using their equity to break free from their credit card debt. So
not even sure what the story was about.
No upfront fees, no pressure. It costs you nothing to find out what you could save every month if you work with them. And if you start today, you may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. And so call American Financing. Number is down in the description below. It's 866-887-1201. That's 866-887-1201. AmericanFinancing.net/Robert. If you want to check it out online. And shout out to American Financing for sponsoring today's session. All right, so we got business now, and so let's get right to it, because here is the latest. We've got this story percolating here. The media very upset with President Trump for calling the riots an insurrection in California. They say only we can declare you
what happened, man?
Even though what we have in this instance is certainly much more analogous to an insurrection than anything they claimed it was previously. So in this clip, we've got CNN having a hissy fit in response to Trump's statement that we'll listen to in a second. But the latest on this is the Marines are on their way out to California. So CNN reporting this, about 700 Marines being mobilized in response to the protests. And we don't know exactly in what capacity they will be deployed, but the full Marine battalion is on the way, marks a significant escalation so soon. U.S. Northern Command said Sunday that 500 Marines from the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines were put on to prepare to deploy orders. Well, one of the people said on Monday that the entire battalion was prepared to deploy and has in fact been mobilized. One of the people familiar with the Marine mobilization said they'll be augmenting the Guard presence on the ground. Over 2,000 members of the California National Guard also been activated by the President, but only about 300 have been deployed to the streets of LA. So the initial 300 people were on routine National Guard drill weekend when they were mobilized, which is why they were able to arrive so quickly. But it could take up to 72 hours for other guardsmen to be mobilized, and Marines are expected to bolster some of the Guard members who have been deployed to LA over the last few days. They said, while the Marines are stressed, the Marines were being deployed only to augment the forces already there. They still say Marines on the streets of America can raise some eyebrows, and they're saying this is Trump being a dictator. Now, while the Marines' tasks have not been specified publicly, they could include assignments like crowd control, establishing perimeter security, and they're still figuring it out. Lawyers within the DOD are still finalizing the language about what's going to be happening.
That's crazy, man.
But likely going to mirror the military's standing rules of use of force. So, while the Marines are on their way, Trump commented on this today. He was making his way back to the White House from the UFC event. And here is what he said when asked about this via the media. Insurrectionist. Here's Dana Jake Tapper Bash, who is just as big a liar as he is, in my opinion, who's going to finger point on this one. Insurrectionists You don't get to call people that, only we do.
It's like you queued him up, Priscilla. That word he used, they're insurrectionists. That, I can't imagine that was an accident.
Of course not.
Because it seems as though that is the place that the White House is trying to get. And for the president, it's icing on the cake that he can do it in the state of California. Because on a whole host of issues, he has had California, Gavin Newsom in particular, in his sights. The question he was asked was about Newsom daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him.
Yeah, we'll get to that later, but they are, of course, recognizing this actually is an insurrection, and their hystericism over the last 4 years about January 6th, the rigged operation conducted by our own government, was not an insurrection. They labeled it an insurrection, never charged anybody with insurrection, didn't have to deploy the Insurrection Act at all. Nothing like that happened. These were U.S. citizens, by the way, who were there, and many of them tapped on the shoulder and invited in. So the point is, they are now witnessing an actual insurrection and having a hard time reconciling it. They had a whole litany of people saying it was mostly peaceful and just deal with it. But the reality is, it was pretty much an insurrection. You have a bunch of people waving their foreign flags around, taking over your streets and torching your neighborhoods, right? That's in LA, our neighborhoods and our streets. And a big part of me, when you say, well, it's California. So if they want to indulge in this behavior, if they want to allow people to come in and just host them and give them every single benefit, roll up the red carpet for illegal aliens, then they can deal with the consequences of it and just let it burn, essentially, right? Let the city, they can deal with their own consequences, leave it alone, and let the state just smolder into the dustbin of history. But we don't want to do that. This is our country. This is our state. We should have a great California that is filled and brimming with American values and American life like it used to. Not this garbage that is being excused by the Democratic Party. Now, here was another scene from our friend Andy No, aka Andy NGO, who says, far left open border rioters severely damaged police vehicles as well and other cars at their insurrection in Los Angeles. They hurled rocks, concrete chunks, Molotov cocktails, and other projectile weapons as well. And here's the scene. And there are cops running around under that bridge. And a lot of this footage is actually pretty sanitized right now. But there's the fire bombs going off, and they're lighting these cars on fire, and they're throwing stuff on the cops who were in those vehicles, who had to scatter because they were getting hit in the head with stuff from the bridge. Totally ridiculous. Here's another angle of more Waymos. These cost, they say, from Peter, about $200K. So millions of dollars in damage that was caused. And what are these flags doing out there? Mexican flags from Mexico, not immigrants in America here for a better life. They're saying, no, this is our land and we're taking it back. So here's another one. This communist is running around here, and the police were also on the freeway. You see,
yeah, it's crazy. I'm sorry. I saw the video. Bao played the whole thing, the preceding videos and stuff, and what happened on the scene. Dude, that's crazy. That's crazy. Dude has some mental health issues. I hope he doesn't get off because of that. Because he premeditated that. That's first degree murder times 2.
In fact, a convicted murderer and a gang member. This dude right here, convicted murderer and gang member running around. He shot up a hiking party in San Maria after a party, AK-47s and more. It says this cold-blooded killer is who the rioters are trying to protect. Oh, that's what they arrested. He wasn't out on the streets, but they went to go get him, right? And all these people are freaking out. They're torching all the cars because they arrested this dude, 1994 murderer, killed 2 teenagers, injured 7 people, blasted a whole party. They deported him out of the country. They lose their minds. How dare you? This is our constituency. These are our people. You can't come after them. And so Tom Todd...
Oh, I've seen that. He said he went to every casino looking for him.
Here's a little snippet. So as the Insurrection Act, 1807, we rewind the clock,
Well, babe.
empowers the President of the United States to nationally deploy the U.S. military to federalize the National Guard units of the individual states in specific circumstances, such as the suppression of civil disorder, of insurrection, and of armed rebellion against the federal government of the United States. Which sounds pretty appropriate like that. Now, the Insurrection Act provides a statutory exception to the Posse Comitatus Act that says you can't have the military on U.S. streets.
Get over.
Now, after invoking or before exercising the powers, the law would require President Trump to issue a proclamation. He would have to formally order the dispersion and go through some other procedures, but it empowers the president to call in service the armed forces.
She thinks she wants to get behind me, and I'm going to the store, and she's going home, so she needs to be in front of me.
Invokes it. Now, prior use, the Insurrection Act has been invoked many times. So when you hear CNN going bananas, think about this. Invoked many
Cool, as
times,
long as she makes it
including
home
the Rodney
safe.
King situation, where the riots went on for quite a while, and during that time, it was invoked. The Insurrection Act many times says Presidents Eisenhower and Kennedy invoked it to enforce court-order desegregation in the aftermath of Hugo in '89 and in the 1992 LA riots. 2006, Bush considered intervening in the state in Katrina.
No, sheets will be open next week, I think.
Trump warned back during George Floyd.
Out in Fremont. The sheets are already open in Toledo, but
Trump signed an executive order requiring
not in
within 90 days to submit a report about conditions at the southern
not in
border.
Fremont. Yeah.
Is this an insurrection that justifies
Next
Trump
Tuesday.
calling out the military to enforce the law? And we know they're getting ready on standby, but mostly this feels like it's a National Guard operation, first and foremost. Now, here was Tom Cotton talking about this, asked on with Fox News, and Tom Cotton obviously sits on some pretty important committees there in the Senate. Here's what he had to say about all this.
Oh, that dude looks fucked
Senator
up.
Tom Cotton is chairman of the Intelligence Committee. Great to have you here. Fellow Senator, yours, but a Democrat, Cory Booker, thinks that this is too much. Watch.
For the president to do this when it wasn't requested, breaking with generations of tradition, is only going to incite the situation and make things worse. The reality is we see peaceful protests launching in Los Angeles. And again, any violence against police officers should not be accepted. Local authorities can handle that. But remember, a lot of these peaceful protests are being generated because the president of the United States is sowing chaos and confusion.
Now, before I get your take on this, we just remembered on June 3rd, 2020, you wrote an op-ed in the New York Times that caused a little controversy, if you might recall. Tom Cotton, send in the troops. The nation must restore order. The military stands ready. And now here we are again, sir.
Yeah, Dana, what we can't allow in this country is lawless violence against innocent civilians, against property, against federal personnel and federal facilities. I'm not sure what pictures and video Cory Booker saw from Los Angeles, calling it peaceful protest. What I saw was uncontrolled rioting. You had cars being set on fire, law enforcement being pelted with bricks and cement and frozen water bottles. You had people blocking not just city streets, but major highways, and attacks on both local and federal law enforcement. We simply can't allow that. We always hope that the local police are able to control the situation. Sometimes Democratic politicians, like the Democratic mayor in Los Angeles, may not let them control it. But if not, we have a responsibility to protect innocent lives and property in this country. That's what President Trump has said. That's why he called out the National Guard and why he stands ready, if necessary, to use active duty troops under the authority of the Insurrection Act to put an end to this violence. That's why we in Congress are acting as well. I'm introducing legislation that will increase penalties for rioters or those who attack law enforcement, that would make it a deportable offense to engage in such crimes. And our big plan, not just to prevent the largest tax increase in history, but to provide ICE and immigration authorities with the money and the resources they need to continue to secure our border and to deport violent, illegal criminals.
Sir, it seems much of the Democratic reaction, I mean, the words sometimes are almost the same. You just heard Cory Booker.
Yeah, that's for sure, because they all get text messages in their little group chat. Like, all right, morons, listen. This is Obama here. Okay, just say this, idiots. And Cory Booker and then Team Obama, Hakeem Jeffries were like, oh yeah, peaceful protest. And then they just do it.
Talk about chaos and confusion and blame it on Donald Trump. Kamala Harris made a rare public statement. She said deploying the National Guard is a dangerous escalation meant to provoke chaos. There's that word again. In addition to recent ICE raids in Southern California, across the country, it's part of the Trump administration's cruel, calculated agenda to spread panic and division. There's the phrase again. What happens now? If it's Los Angeles today, soon it'll be Chicago, maybe New York. What are we in for nationally, do you think?
Well, Bill, the Los Angeles Police Department chief has said his officers are overwhelmed. If that's the case, the Democratic mayor and governor of California has stepped
There's a
in
dude
and used
losing
the
his
National
mind in
Guard
there.
and other law enforcement to help
Wow.
the LAPD restore order. But Kamala Harris talks about danger and chaos. That's what she and Joe Biden presided over for 4 years when we had a slow motion invasion of this country. In the election last year, the American people voted to secure our border and to deport illegal aliens, especially violent criminals of the kind that were apprehended in California late last week. It's not provocative to enforce federal law. It's not provocative to do what President Trump campaigned on. What's provocative is to have all of these illegal aliens setting cars on fire while they wave the flags of foreign countries and now being joined by professional agitators from Antifa or pro-Hamas sympathizers. That has to stop. President Trump is committed that it's going to stop today. If Democratic mayors and governors can't do it, then the federal government will have to.
Could you answer a question on the law? Because here's a little bit from a Washington Post article saying that Trump charged new territory by bypassing Newsom to deploy National Guard. Legal experts question the president's response to unrest in LA, saying he appears to be laying groundwork for more expansive use of the military to suppress dissent. Is the law clear here on the president's side?
The law is entirely clear. The National Guard, they're traditionally operating under governor's authorities, can be federalized and can be used by the president to restore basic order and to enforce federal law. That's what Dwight Eisenhower did in my state in the 1950s when a Democratic governor refused to integrate Little Rock Central. Then the Insurrection Act is also a backstop to the National Guard to provide the president for use of active duty troops. President Trump has said we're not there yet, but he does stand by ready to do so if necessary. That's what I said we should do in 2020 as well. We need to have our authorities ready if local police are not allowed.
My favorite meat is a ribeye, but on a grill, it's going to be ribs, pork ribs.
Be interesting to find out who's holding those Mexican flags. Maybe in time we will. Seems like we're in for a long, hot summer. We'll see where it goes from here. Senator, thank you for your time.
Illegal Mexicans are holding those flags. That's who's holding them. They're part of an invasion force. And if they're not illegal Mexicans, then they're Americans who are co-conspiring for the cause of the invasion. That's what a flag is. It's a symbol, and we've been planting them in conquest for our entire existence as a species. So we know what it means, and we know what they're doing. Now, here is another interesting question. Talking about reciprocity between the states. And I saw this flagged by a bunch of people on X. You can repost Grok conversations. And so this is just an AI answer, but it looked pretty credible to me because it's citing a bunch of sources saying, question, does Mexico allow foreigners to protest politically? So if you're an American and you go down to Mexico and you say, you know, we think that your country's corrupt as hell because you're run by
those are delicious.
Protest and the drug cartels. I get killed because it's Mexico and you know that's who's in charge. But if you're not killed, they'll arrest you. In fact, that's happened.
It's almost as good as a
Mexico
steak.
does not allow foreigners
Yeah,
to participate
those are delicious.
in political protests. What? According to Article 33 of the Mexican Constitution, foreigners are prohibited from engaging in political activities, including demonstrations, as this is considered interference in national affairs. Participation can lead to detention and deportation. For example, in 2002, American students were deported for joining a peaceful protest in Mexico City. Peaceful. I'm sure. I don't know if they were torching.
Why are you stopping? Why are you stopping, you
I
fucking
don't think they were
idiots?
torching cars or anything, and they still got deported. The U.S. Embassy also advises citizens to avoid these activities due to legal consequences. So it would be a nice reciprocity to just show them the same respect and say, get out and deport all of them. Now, President Trump came out with this new message. He says, if they spit, then we hit. Not playing around from the president.
About law
Well, I'd love to have you for a grill night, bud.
Yeah, and Ed Martin got looted.
If we're able to make it happen, I would love to make it happen.
DC, who then yanked her dog. He had to face assault by these people, and now it's like on full display. It's much worse than just spitting. They're also burning and torching.
And when that happens, I have a little statement. They say, they spit, we hit. And I told them,
Nailed it.
nobody's going to spit on our police officers.
hit the
Nobody's
button,
going to
dude.
spit
We'll stop
on
for
our
you.
military. Which they do as a common thing. They get up to them this far away and then they start spitting in their face. That happens, they get hit very hard.
Yeah, good, because that's assault. That's physical contact. And it can actually be very dangerous, right? You don't know what's in these people's saliva. Oh my gosh. They're poly relationships. They've changed gender 45 times. What the heck's going on in there? They spit on your face, you start to mutate into some sort of...
You're not planning to invoke that insurrection act. You still plan to send troops?
Well, we're going to have troops everywhere. We're not going to let this happen to our country. We're not going to let our country be torn apart like it was under Biden and this auto test.
Not gonna happen. So repercussions will be coming. Hopefully they don't have to, and the administration is able to quell this with the current forces because the people are familiar with what's coming and peace takes over. But if that doesn't happen and the military has to come in, hopefully they round up every single illegal alien in one fell swoop and deport all of them immediately. Now, we've got that happening there. So we've also got some reaction from the president towards Gavin Newsom. Trump unloads on Gavin Newsom, truth after truth, explaining how Newsom is terrible and responsible for a lot of this. Not only has he wrecked California's economics and standing in the world stage, they're in a major deficit, and they take, I think, 20 years to build a bathroom. In
Yeah, she loves it too.
Bizarre. Can't build a train, can't really do much of anything, but are still latching on to the afterglow of a much better era and better generation. But now Gavin is very upset with President Trump. And so he comes out, and he's so desperate for meaning and purpose, has very little of it since his entire life is a charade. But he is now saying, you know, why don't you come and arrest me? Basically begging for Trump to arrest him, for Tom Homan to come and arrest him, so that he can have some relevance once again, make him the centerpiece of attention, and then he can do something with his life. But Trump says, look, not going to happen, okay? We made a great decision in sending the National Guard to deal with the violent, instigated riots in California. We're not backing down from this. If we had not done so, LA would have been completely obliterated. Gavin, the very incompetent governor called Gavin Newsom, and Mayor Karen Bass, in quotes, Mayor, should be saying, thank you, President Trump. You were so wonderful. We would be nothing without you, sir. Instead, they choose to lie to the people of California and America by saying that we weren't needed and that these are, quote, peaceful protests. What? Just one look at the pictures and the videos of the violence and the destruction tells you all you have to know. We will always do what is needed to keep our citizens safe so we can together make America great again. And we've got this supercut from Tom S. Elliott that is exactly this, right? Trump mentions that these people say it is all peaceful and non-violent, and we got our friend Tom S. Elliott, supercut on X at Tom S. Elliott. He is someone who assembles these over radio. Says from corporate media, you know, these murderous riots are actually mostly peaceful. So here was the lecture from Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass in Durham.
The LA County Police say that they have it under control. Carrying a flag is not illegal, as you know. What did happen in 1992 was so different from what we're seeing now. I mean, that was a real riot.
Video after video.
A real riot.
Video has shown that these agents are the ones provoking.
Look at that dude throwing rocks at windshields, okay? That is like aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, right? That could cause death instantly. So that guy should be charged and arrested, you know, for attempted murder. Every single one of those rocks that he's throwing over there. And these people just, oh, it's mostly peaceful.
Shown that these agents are the ones provoking protesters and also making up, aggression by these protesters that later video shows people were not aggressive.
We are having an administration that's targeting peaceful protests, people that are there to protest. The president is sending the National Guard because he doesn't like the scenes. He doesn't like the scenes of people peacefully protesting.
The unrest is isolated. LA is home to millions of people. Most of them are having a normal day here on Sunday.
You know, you've heard reports that there are riots on the streets of Los Angeles. That is not what's happening across the city of Los Angeles.
Governor Newsom's right. There wasn't anything like a riot happening on Friday, Saturday.
We just witnessed a protester thanking a National Guardsman for his service here in California.
LAPD, by most estimates, had this under control last night.
No, I don't think the National Guard is needed now. Things in LA are calm. There was a protest that got a little unruly late at night.
There have been no violence where anybody that was protesting hit anybody, shot anybody, threatened anybody. It's nothing has happened.
That's Maxine Waters. If you couldn't understand her, I understand why.
What is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn.
Having fun watching cars burn. It is fun to watch a car burn, as long as it's not your car. That other guy's not having a lot of fun though. He's like, honey, that was our whole, and everything in there.
Most of those demonstrators were very peaceful. They were chanting, they were shouting.
Peaceful, look at that, peaceful shouting. That dude is flipping her off right there, right in the background. Totally peaceful, mostly peaceful. F you, lady.
They were chanting, they were shouting. People were driving by.
Okay, so that is Gavin Newsom's California. So when he does this little nonsense about Trump, we had this all under control, you understand this is a
Hey, babies. Trump. Hey, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. Well, okay. Well, let's hurry. Let's move on, okay? Dog day. Oh, hi. Look at this. Look at this, babe. Look at this. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Let them know who the boss is. Let them know. Yeah. This is, I love this. There's turds on the floor in the kitchen here.
Yeah, thank God that part.
Oh, hey, baby. Oh, look at this. Hey, baby. It's almost 9 o'clock. Let's just do treats.
Well, I mean, in the house right now.
No, we don't. Get back. Get back. You got some. Hello? You're gone.